Okay, mic check. Welcome back to Stream of Thoughts. I've decided I would make a part 2 of this where, I've talked about in the previous episode about how kind of the Let's Plays changed over the course of, was that 2 decades maybe? And so now I kind of want to transition that to to why I'm doing it, where that brought me, and why I'm here doing, at the moment, just a whole lot of games, and not much else. So, let's begin, shall we? I must blow up in your ears every time. I apologize. But, uh, where do I begin? Not really, not, don't really have any notes, although this might be a heavy topic. Heavy in the sense that there's a lot of things in it. So I'll probably miss a few things, but oh well. That's the nature of not improvisation, doing things in a freeform manner. But one thing I didn't really mention in the last part, and I said I'd talk about it perhaps another day, about the Let's Plays, kind of this new dynamic created between the the creator or the player and the audience. And most of the time, the audience is often more in the know than the creator is. Since now, just to recap, now gaming is more seen as a reaction form, where games are kind of the stimulus that the player reacts to, and the audience gets to enjoy said reactions to the game. And so with it comes, since a lot of the audience know what the game is about, since there's a lot of audience and a lot of minds compared to one, now it starts to lead to this trend of backseating, where a lot of audience members tell the player how to do things, where to go. So in a way, the dynamic is kind of reversed from the past, where the player is to teach the audience how to play things out, and now we see this turn. And now, kind of in a way, this dynamic has kind of changed, in which now, depending on how powerful or strong that this influence that the audience has over the player, now it kind of starts to feel like the audience is playing the game now rather than the player. And they're kind of reacting to how, they just want to see the player react to things they've known or experienced. And in a way that kind of limits the player's freedoms. Because there are some things they might want to discover for themselves. That aspect of self-discovery is lost. I mean, one of the big things backseating lies behind is often behind puzzle solving. Generally because it takes a player a bit of time on their own to, say, solve a puzzle. But with an audience there, one, they don't really want to wait. There's nothing to react to, nothing fun, and it could be dull. So it could often lead to backseating, which is them trying to help to whatever level is necessary to player to help them solve that. Now, of course, as a result, it kind of ruins that so-called self-discovery. It ruins kind of. Let me just. Apologies. There we go. Maybe about there. It kind of ruins this aspect of, you aren't really feeling too rewarded, I guess, in the psychological sense, where, there is this, I'm there isn't this self-gratification for... Is that the right word? Not sure. I'll think about it later. But there isn't this self-reward for, well, doing something yourself, achieving something without the help of an audience. And that almost kind of gets, well, thrown off. And it's kind of one of the things I dislike about modern, well, the modern Let's Play, we'll call it, because that's what I have been. Now, of course, this, as I've mentioned before, this isn't completely, well, applicable to everything, but generally it does seem to be the most popular output, or one of the more popular outputs of gaming and Let's Plays in this generation. And so, well, knowing this and seeing how much the aspects of it, I mentioned this, you might have gotten a sense from this, but there is some dislike that that I put out just because of general interactions between the three mediums, the game, the player, and the audience. And so, the question comes, why am I doing it? As I've mentioned before, a lot of content I've done has been done by someone before. Well, has very likely been done by someone before. Has very likely been done better as a means of equipment, personality, editing, things like that. The games I play, well, the current game right now is, well, Hollow Knight, but I do some side streams. But those have been done plenty of times. Hollow Knight was popular about, I want to say, 2 or 3 years ago? Maybe, actually, no, longer. 2 or 3 years ago was the start of the pandemic. Oof. Well, but anyways. Lost my train of thought. But yeah, what I'm doing is nothing different. What I'm doing is seemingly not special. So why? And despite what I said about the air quotes modern Let's Play, I've already pointed out things that I'm disappointed in, almost, in how I see things trending and going. So really, why would I do it? Well, for the first reason, surprisingly enough, is this is something that I love to do. Well, just gaming in general. Gaming is the thing that I have the most fun about. It's the thing that I'm most passionate about, and therefore, I hope in that way, one of the aspects of that is to help my true character come out. And to actually bring out, well, yeah, to bring out more of myself. Since I'm not really someone who really brings themselves out there often, or only when the time calls for it, really. I also love kind of that aspect of performance and performing for an audience. It's not something I get to do anymore, but it's still something I love and want to do more of. And so I do this because I want to, well, look at it. And third, and kind of the deeper one here, is because I kind of want to see the Let's Play dynamic transform a bit more. Because I could understand and see the dynamics of what's going on with, well, I call them Let's Plays, or at least have a perspective. Might be true, might not. More likely somewhere in the middle there. Nothing binary. But because I understand kind of that dynamic between the three subjects and their 6 different interactions, I would hope that I can pull something off that can bring out kind of the best a Let's Play could do, even though, well, that's kind of the glorified version. really, I don't expect to do it well. I don't. I mean, I'm not even sure if I could do even a mediocre job, but it's a framework, if you will. But going back a little, going just to explain my train of thought, my line of thinking, I've already talked about kind of the rune dynamic between. I've well, you'll see the three subjects being the audience, the player, and the game. Already talked about how kind of there seems to be an empowering dynamic between the audience and the player, forcing the player to play the game the way the audience wants. And so it kind of creates this, well, change in gameplay and is more of a reaction. Starts to become the player reacts to the stimulus that the audience guides them to. And it's not really as ideal. To put it in a different perspective, it almost feels like good old Pavlov's dog. Sure, I guess I could use that. The audience is just the audience just rings the bell just to see the see the player dog salivate. But really, the player dog doesn't feel like it has autonomy. Doesn't feel like it has much to do. It's just forced to salivate under the ring of the bell whenever it happens. And the bell ringer is enjoying all of this. So, in a way, there feels like there's this imbalance. Now, kind of what I see and how I see things is I feel like there needs to be a bit more of an equal dynamic between the three subjects. I said previously that uh, there are 6 different interactions going on, so let me just talk about them. So, well, quite simply and mathematically, there are three subjects who are interacting with each other: the game, player, and the audience. And as such, there are relationships between each individual one. So, player and game, player and audience and game, that would be 3. But you also have the dynamics between those, the interactions between a subject and both subjects at once. So to explain that, I really wish I could draw a diagram here. I mean, I could, but it'll take up a bit of time. So we'll have, say, a player and their interactions with the game and the audience at the same time. Well, you'd have. Oh, what happened here? Oh, never mind. You'd have it between the audience, who will interact with the player in game and their dynamic, as well as the game and their interaction with both the player and the audience. So, well, I guess just to explain, this part I haven't really thought out too well. This is more conceptual. This is more conceptual more than, well, practical, so bear with me if I don't have any connecting points or whatnot. But so, well, first off, yeah, I'll explain a little bit. So the first off is the dynamic between the player and the game. Of course, it's a game, so a player has to enjoy it. Player needs to pay attention to it in order for them to react and love the story. Or not love the story necessarily, but enjoy what the game has to offer. And so there's that interaction between the player and audience. The player has to address their audience. They have to communicate with the audience just so it doesn't feel like the audience is talking to a wall. There has to be some interactive dynamic, a bit of entertaining between the player and audience, as well as some administrative things as well. I should put in there as well. So make sure when the audience misbehaves, there is some form of interaction there. Next is the audience in the game, which the audience needs to understand. Well, this is a fairly easy one, of what the game has to offer as well. So the game has to clearly communicate itself, whatever it needs to portray, whether it be gameplay or story. to the audience. And so that's kind of an important aspect of, well, kind of, well, the three subjects interacting with each other individually. Now, what about kind of the interaction between a subject and the interaction of two subjects? So for instance, wait, give me a second. Can't pause recordings. Never mind, I won't. So for instance, a streamer and the audience as well as the game. And for that dynamic, this why did I say streamer? I guess I do think of it as kind of the stream element. But when I think about it, it comes down to, well, focus. The player has to pay attention to both the game and the audience at the same time. Has to give them equal amounts of attention. Pay attention to the game, or you might miss something, and the audience will get upset. And for the audience, well, pay attention to the audience, because the Let's Play dynamic focuses on that interaction between the player and the audience, and so there has to be a degree of attention that has to be brought to both. Nothing too empowering on one side, because, well, otherwise it would kind of ruin the experience for all parties. So having too much focus on the game and not on the audience might leave the audience, well, leaves an audience left unintended, and an audience left unintended is, well, an audience you don't want to deal with. Now, if you pay too much attention to the audience, you aren't really reacting too much to the game. And so, as a result, well, you won't get any reactions. The audience seemingly doesn't have half the reason of why they want to stay. Half being, well, because they stay because of the game, and also because of the player. Next up is the game's interaction with both the player and the audience. And now this one kind of feels like I've mentioned this both, but it's communication. The game has to communicate clearly to the player and the audience of what it wants to tell or how it wants to be played. If there's aspects of confusion between story or gameplay, it wouldn't be fun for anyone perceiving it. And so it's important that it communicates what it does just right, as well as set the tone. That is also an important aspect. Now lastly, we have the audience dynamic between the player and the game. And that, well, actually no, going back to the audience and talking about the game's attention to audience and player. To have kind of that equal true dynamic, it should try to communicate equally to both audiences. It shouldn't be that it's only the player that's understanding everything that's going on, but it also shouldn't be that the audience isn't the one who only understands what's going on. Otherwise, well, someone's attention will be lost, and that dynamic, well, the dynamic gets kind of broken. The third and final interaction is between the audience and the player and the game. And their job is, well, attentiveness and just being an audience. It's to put out, well, so once again, make sure they're focusing on the game, focusing on the player, being able to communicate just right as to what's going on, what's going on, what's happening, and to react. Because, well, yeah, an audience is there to, well, react to, well, funny because, well, I brought up the analogy earlier of the player being the reactor, but also just, hey, no, I can't remember now. Oh, whatever. Loose thoughts. Loose thoughts. Freeform. Let's continue. But now for the audience, yeah, their job is to pay attention, be attentive, follow rules, things like that. And learn how the game works, help out the player when it needs to, because backseating, despite me saying that, having a negative perspective about it, of course it's not completely negative. There is an extent to which it works. And it and you well, of course it depends on the situation, the circumstance. It'll always change in each different instance. There is a different game, a different player, a different audience. The dynamic will change because, well, that's how group dynamics works. But anyways, what I want to say is, well, actually now going back to audience attention, once again, you don't want to pay too much attention to, say, a personality or the player, because then you wouldn't exactly know what they're reacting to or be able to assist them in whatever way. But you don't want to focus too much attention on the game because, well, the reactor is there. Well, you're better off just playing the game yourself if you really want to. And so these are all the 6 different relationships that are established. And so, ideally, in my view, it'd be best to find, well, kind of that nice sweet spot, that nice center. And it's because I've laid out this framework. It's because I've laid out how I want to, well, I've laid out how I expect to see things, that I want to give my fair shake at this. Because, well, it's going to be a really hard thing to do. It's reliant on, well, 3 different subjects. 2 of which are, well, 3 technically, are always changing. But it's that ability to find and hit that sweet spot. And I believe that since it's easy for me, since I feel like I've gained a level of understanding of that without actually doing it, doing it a lot, that, well, I want to give it a fair shake. And of course, this would be easy with a minimal small audience. And so, yeah. Can I answer why I'm doing this? In a way, yes. 23 minutes, it's a bit long. But, well, I guess, yeah. Back to the question of why exactly am I doing this? I mean, for probably half of this, I've been talking about relationships, and, well, in the sense of dynamics between subjects, but, well, point is, I wanted to do this because it's something fun and something I'm passionate about and something I could just learn. Well, something I could apply psychological knowledge to is kind of what I'm getting at. Where it's performance as well. And so there's a lot of things that I love, a lot of things I could apply into focusing behind, well, this. Now, of course, it doesn't seem like it now. It's kind of just, well, a bit shallow, hollow, if you will. But, that's kind of the goal that I intend to take. I intend to learn a whole bunch of different things I intend to learn more and do better and do what I love more. And so, doing this, well, yeah, I hope I'll be better practiced, refined, and well, uh, engage my mind in a different, new sense. Especially since, well, you know, technically technically I can game alone, but well, like many things, many experiences, especially, I'm sure this is relatable with social media, but experiences are often best shared with another. Maybe more of why I do this. Because, well, yeah, well, I don't know. Feel like I'm losing a lot of my others. So it'd be nice to share experiences and hopefully get that get that kind of harmony between the three subjects somewhere here online. Huh. But yes, I think that is everything I wanted to say. Bit of a heavy one. A lot of things to digest, but I think those are all my thoughts. Apologies for breaks. I'm not sure if music has been going on or not in the background. Due to some audio error I'm aware of. Just didn't see it coming. But anyways, ah, guess that's been the stream. Those have been my thoughts. We're almost coming up to doing all of this for half a year. So I'm gonna have a gigantic bit about that. But I think next time, I think the plan is to kind of go over some of the specific games that I love. Since, well, I don't know, lays out the groundwork for some things. And it's a nice transition from here. So yeah. Oh, hopefully there was something learned. Or hopefully this could be applied in the future. That'd be nice. If gaming psychology were a thing. Ooh, make it so. I'm not... I don't think I'm... well, good enough, shall I say, to do the research. Research isn't my place of, well, psychology that I want to do. But I could theorize. And, well, create conceptual experiments, if you will. Even if I'm the dummy. Very well then. That's it. That's been the stream. Those have been my thoughts. And I guess... oh, you've got to be kidding me. Might have been an error. That's been the stream of thoughts.